The recognition trophy tumbles from my grasp as I pause in the entrance to Willow Creek Bistro's reserved banquet hall. The crystal prize shatters on the gleaming oak planks, the sharp snap reverberating like a thunderclap in the hushed space. Nobody so much as blinks. Their gazes stay locked on the glowing display, where my sibling's sleek slideshow radiates professional assurance. Willow Creek Bistro Growth Plan, President Ethan Harper. President Ethan Harper. My breath catches as I survey the expressions around our vintage walnut conference table. My father's beaming grin, my mother's fingers intertwined in eager expectation, and my brother's impeccably tailored jacket as he commands the front of the room. My room, the spot I've claimed for more than 10 years of strategy sessions. Emily, Dad remarks, coughing lightly. You're behind schedule. We've kicked off the yearly review already. Yearly review. My words echo faintly in my ears. You shifted it forward by a fortnight. The eatery's 15th milestone party is set for tomorrow. I've been tying up loose ends since dawn. Ethan advances to the following frame, which is precisely why we must solidify the handover today. The event offers an ideal moment to reveal the news. Handover. The term leaves a sour tang. Mom inclines toward me. Sweetheart, we've handed over daily management to Ethan. Starting right away, we aim to catch you off guard. Well done, I murmur. But the noise of my reality fracturing drowns it out. Only days prior, I had basked in the glare of the Seattle Gourmet Honors spotlight, claiming Fresh Catch Innovation of the Year for my Dungeness crab with citrus infusion. The crowd had burst into cheers, yet during our follow-up feast, my parents had only nibbled absent-mindedly. It's pleasant, Emily, Dad had commented, twirling his cabernet, but not expandable. We must aim higher. In contrast, they'd lifted their goblets to Ethan, celebrating his graduate connections and novel viewpoints. Forget that while he dropped by on vacation periods, I devoted endless evenings refining dishes, forging ties with regional providers, and tripling our earnings in the past half-decade. Now I clutch the rear of a seat for support. This can't be real. I hold a gastronomy certification. I crafted our promotion blueprint. I tripled our income. And we're grateful for that, dear. Dad's voice oozes patronization. You're brilliant behind the stove, but Ethan grasps commerce. You can remain our lead cook. Lead cook. As though I haven't steered this whole venture for ages, while they eased into leisure at their coastal retreat. As if the accolades, the rave critiques, the devoted patrons who greet me personally count for zilch. My palms cease quivering as insight floods in. I dip into my pouch, extract my bistro keys, and set them purposefully on the surface with a resonant ting. I'm more than your cook. I shape this identity. Ethan exhales theatrically. Look, Dad, this is what I cautioned about. She's overly sentimental regarding corporate choices. Dad furrows his brow. Emily, grasp this. It's not about you. It's for growing the enterprise. Not about me. I chuckle, the sound harsh and alien. You ambushed me amid the milestone bash I orchestrated. You skipped consulting me on alterations to the eatery I've invested my soul in for 11 cycles. That's sufficient. Mom interjects. Ethan possesses a master's in administration. He comprehends the path. And there lies the routine dynamic. They instinctively align with Ethan, brushing off my worries as hysterical responses instead of valid operational acumen. It's beyond my role in jeopardy, but my gastronomic standing, the excellence benchmarks I've set, the bonds I've fostered with vendors and guests. Gazing at them clustered, a truth solidifies. They've never viewed me as a peer collaborator. To them, I've perpetually been personnel, the dependable operator who maintains flow while they dictate the actual verdicts. You know something. I declare, my tone firmer than my inner turmoil. Perhaps you're correct. Perhaps Ethan ought to assume command. Their visages ease with evident solace, but etch this instant in memory. I proceed, retreating to the exit. Since when you discern what you've discarded, don't anticipate me salvaging the fragments. I pivot and depart, abandoning the fragmented honor that abruptly signifies naught. That evening, I intended solely to retrieve my smock from the workspace, not to unearth the extent of my sibling's deceit. Yet there it perches on Ethan's unlocked notebook. The Bayview Looks In's emblem blazing from the monitor like a condemnation. My sight sharpens as I peruse the correspondence, my digits bracing the threshold for balance. Esteemed Mr. Harper, we confirm your deferral of Wednesday's agreement session. Though saddened to delay talks on the 850,000 Banquet Alliance, we anticipate your showcase of optimized, budget-friendly substitutes to the initial cuisine outline. The ground appears to sway underfoot. That session wasn't Ethan's to postpone. I'd invested half a year nurturing that connection, devising periodic selections, computing precise ingredient expenses that would uphold our caliber while safeguarding their gains. 850,000, almost a third of our yearly intake, brushed aside via one message. I navigate downward, queasiness mounting as I delve deeper. Concerning your query on revising the prize, winning marine selections, we're amenable to options as long as they preserve the pinnacle of superiority we sampled in our preliminary tasting with cook Emily. The disloyalty plunges further than conceived. Merely a month back, Ethan had hovered by my post, pad ready, posing intricate queries on my citrus infusion method. Just absorbing from the expert, he'd quipped with that youthful smirk that perpetually swayed our folks. Now I fathom he wasn't absorbing. He was scheming. My limbs quiver with fury so intense it mimics a separate entity in the chamber. 7 years of gastronomy training. 11 years of 70-hour shifts. Yet my kin could descend and unravel all I'd constructed. The subsequent dawn, I thrust open the utility door of Willow Creek Bistro, a half-hour prior to the vendor rendezvous I wasn't summoned to. The culinary crew swaps anxious looks as I stride past, their murmurs trailing me along the corridor. I halt beyond the banquet hall, eavesdropping on Ethan's assured baritone. The portal stands ajar, affording a vivid glimpse of the walnut table where Henry, our seafood merchant of 9 years, perches with a profound crease betwixt his eyes. Adjacent sits Grace, whose kin ranch has furnished our veggies since prior to my involvement. Opposite them resides Ethan in a slate ensemble that yet bears the seamstress's marks at the hems. The elite marine procurements are merely unviable at our present magnitude, Ethan articulates, distributing shiny dossiers across the expanse. We'll shift to a steadier distributor with countrywide reach. Henry Hawks. Cook Emily handpicked our goods because we assure same, morning harvest. Your clientele will detect the variance. Our clientele seeks affordability and uniformity. Ethan retorts fluidly. Likewise, Grace. We'll merge our veggie requests via Seattle Dining Depot. Their bulk reductions will markedly boost our profits. Grace's calloused palm clenches her cup. Those berries you adore stem from my eastern plot. They receive dawn rays but dusk cover. That's why they're more flavorful than any from a mass wholesaler. I can endure no more. I shove the entry wide and 3 crania swivel my way. Emily, Ethan's beam fails to touch his gaze. This is confidential. With my vendors, I reboot, advancing to position behind Henry and Grace. The folks who've aided in forging our repute for superiority. Ethan exhales theatrically. My sibling struggles with adapting to the fresh course. Kindly route all inquiries to me henceforth. What fresh course? I inquire, grasping the dossier before Henry. Within our drafts of revised offerings. My prize, winning Dungeness crab with citrus infusion vanished, so to my oak, grilled trout with berry compote. Replaced by bland labels. Broiled marine assortment and catch of the moment. You're homogenizing the selections, I utter the phrase acrid. For franchise proliferation, we're establishing expandable frameworks, Ethan amends, rising to reaffirm dominance. Mom and Dad concur it's the proper step. The perils clarify with utter lucidity. This transcends my occupation, it's concerning all I've erected. My gastronomic prestige. The faithful guests who arrive expressly for my timely inventions. And presently, the 850,000 Bayview looks packed that could have anchored our fiscal tomorrow while sustaining our criteria. Henry, I whisper, what befalls your enterprise sans our requests? The seafood trader shakes his cranium. Will endure, but I've 2 vessels that harvest chiefly for Willow Creek Bistro. I'll must release one skipper. Grace appends, and I've broadened my heritage strains, grounded on your selection schemes, Emily. If you're abstaining, I'll have to till under 1/3 of my yields this period. Ethan Hawks. These are regrettable yet essential commercial tweaks. On tweaks, Emily. We ought to converse your remuneration bundle. The lead cook role doesn't merit board level compensation. The ultimate affront strikes like a corporeal strike. 11 years of 70-hour stretches elevating this eatery's stature, and now I confront downgrade and salary reduction, whilst observing all I've fashioned being deconstructed for expandable frameworks. That twilight, post-departure of all, Michael locates me in the galley, systematically bundling my individual blades. The galley team stands with you, he murmurs, his timber stable after 9 years as my deputy cook. Whatever path you select, we trust in your benchmarks, not his. As I encase my preferred chef's knife in safeguarding fabric, the query burdens my thoughts. Out I remain in battle for the venture I assisted in forging, or depart utterly and commence anew. Battling signified agonizing routine clashes with my kin, but departing implied forsaking all I'd labored for across a decade. What would you pursue when those who should cherish you utmost neglect to perceive your merit? 3 days hence, the crew assembly notice materializes in my messages, titled Selection Revamp Rollout, Obligatory Presence. I scan it thrice, my mandible clenching. Ethan has timed it amid setup hours when he knows I'm most occupied. The meeting space hums with uneasy vigor when I enter tardily by 10 minutes, palms yet moist from slicing greens. Ethan commands the table's end, my position. His custom attire a sharp disparity to my powder, speckled uniform. Impeccable arrival, Emily. I was delineating our thrilling novel trajectory. Ethan progresses the display, unveiling a simplified selection devoid of my hallmark creations. We're enacting these shifts starting tomorrow, but the Dungeness crab with citrus infusion is our top requested item. Sarah, our chief attendant, objects. We have steadfast visitors who seek it deliberately. Ethan's grin strains. The novel selection emphasizes productivity and expandability. We can't be captive to one cook's uniqueness. One cook. As if I'm merely another hire rather than the individual who elevated this eatery's renown. The alterations crash like a deluge. In days, habitual patrons commence querying servers on absent favorites. Mrs. Thornton, who marked her wedding date here for 10 years, departs sans ordering upon learning the sole with pickled lime is discontinued. What's become of the caliber? Emerges as a frequent probe, and Ethan's reply is invariably identical. Fault the galley crew. Not his verdicts. Not his guidance. The performance in the rear isn't aligning with our norms. I catch him informing the Patels, enduring supporters who returned their charred roasts. Sarah's countenance flushes with shame as she regrets cuisine she recognizes falls short. The decisive strike arrives when Northwest Flavors, the metropolis's premier dining journal, issues a critique headed, "Has Willow Creek Bistro dimmed its glow?" The author, who'd formerly lauded my creative spin on classic regional fare, now queries if the eatery has forsaken its dedication to superiority for broad allure. Within the galley, the undermining persists. I show up one morn to discover my specialized gear. The bespoke griller, the foreign slicer, the accurate gauges, relocated to storage. In their stead stand 4 matching fry units. Where's my gear? I insist. Ethan directed, "We require additional fryer volume for the fresh starter lineup." Michael clarifies, avoiding my gaze. "Your items are in the locker by the delivery bay." Each dusk, I recline sleepless, gazing at the overhead, mentally reconstructing formulas I've honed over years. For the initial instance since training, preparing feels like a load rather than delight. The galley, once my haven, has transformed into a conflict zone where every plate poses potential strife. The crew treads cautiously, trapped betwixt allegiance to me and dread of joblessness. When I guide the station cooks to complete the trout with herb spread, Ethan revokes the directive shortly after. "The formula specifies vegetable oil solely," he proclaims boldly. "We demand uniformity, not ad-libbing, but preparing isn't assembly, it's craft and knowledge and instinct entwined." Ethan's uniformity erodes all that renders cuisine worthwhile to craft. Following one especially arduous shift, where 4 groups returned Ethan's rendition of my oyster plate, I withdraw to the chill room, resting my brow against the icy racks. Tears of exasperation loom, but I deny their release. That evening, I commence recording everything: formulas, methods, vendor bonds, in a bound notebook. If I can't safeguard my galley, I'll at least safeguard my gastronomic heritage. The ensuing dusk, after all have retired, I detect a tiny mandarin positioned exactly at my station. Beneath it rests a scrawled memo in Michael's distinct script: "Your formulas, your outlook. Certain elements can't be substituted, even by a degree." For the first occasion in weeks, I grin. The tipping point manifests during setup for the Bayview Looks Leadership Supper. The galley pulses with strain as personnel haste to ready for the paramount shift, since Ethan assumed control. The $850,000 agreement dangles precariously. I'm fine, tuning the flavor in the broth concentrate when my father materializes in the portal, Ethan shadowing. "Emily, we must discuss tonight's lineup." Dad states, his inflection carefully tuned. "Ethan harbors worries about your arrangements." My arrangements mirror precisely what secured us this chance initially. I respond, not lifting from the bubbling vessel. "Emily, accept that Ethan's leading now," Dad asserts, advancing nearer. "This is commerce, not individual." The ladle halts in my grip. All about cuisine is individual. That's why folks return. They don't bond with productivity, they bond with fervor. The Bayview folks desire expandable ideas. Ethan intrudes, not elaborate uniques that solely you can perform. His terms encapsulate all awry with their outlook. They don't seek an eatery, they seek a factory. They don't desire my cuisine, they desire something anybody could produce. You know what I've discerned. I articulate, placing the ladle and loosening my smock. We no longer share ideals. You view cuisine as merchandise, I view it as an encounter. Don't exaggerate, Dad says. We're discussing a commercial verdict. No, we're discussing my life's labor. I confront them squarely. I'm not witnessing you ruin what I've constructed. I resign, and I'm carrying my formulas along. The galley quiets. Even the exhaust fans seem to pause. "You can't resign," Ethan stammers. "Not this evening, not with Bayview approaching." Observe. I haven't attained the exit when Michael advances. If cook Emily departs, so do I. 5 additional cooks shed their smocks. The deputy, the dessert specialist, the station chief, my folks, my squad. That dusk, my device vibrates with a message from Grace, my veggie vendor. Wherever you settle, your unique procurement deal follows. Excellence knows excellence. For the initial time, I permit myself to picture something novel. Not scrabbling for fragments of regard in my kin's eatery, but forging something genuinely mine. That night, I doodle ideas for my own eatery in the edges of my formula diary, the sheets brimming with potentials rather than complaints. The following dawn, I place 2 contacts. First to Victor Lang, Bayview Looks' gastronomy head, soliciting a confidential conference. The second astonishes even me. While emptying my workspace, a contact card slips from my planner. "Lydia Grant, dining venue broker. We'd connected at a trade association gathering months prior, and she'd noted a choice spot vacating in the arts quarter. I seize my device, my digits steady as I key her digits. Lydia, it's Emily Harper. I believe I'm prepared for that venue we chatted about. 8 days later, my dossier glides across the polished, teak surface toward David Harlan, whose seasoned palms have financed 4 of Seattle's thriving eateries. The morning rays pour through tall panes, brightening the boardroom of Northwest Ventures. I've tracked your contributions at Willow Creek Bistro for ages, David remarks, examining my Dungeness crab with citrus infusion image. Your taste fusions are extraordinary. I adjust my navy jacket, summoning assurance I've reconstructed over the recent days. My concept is contemporary regional fare highlighting eco-friendly, nearby sources. The plates that garnered honors weren't accidents, they were the peak of bonds with vendors who comprehend my criteria. David inclines approvingly. Most cooks discuss components. You discuss bonds and structures. That's invigorating. I've readied for this juncture painstakingly, practicing my proposal while crafting my enterprise scheme into the wee hours. The split from Willow Creek Bistro stings raw, but resolve has supplanted the preliminary jolt. I won't merely replicate prior successes, I elaborate, shifting to the economic forecasts. I've pinpointed precisely where expenditures can be curtailed sans undermining caliber. Before I conclude my showcase, David leans in. I'll support you. Your dossier is compelling, but your insight on insights from the kin enterprise assures me you're primed to guide. How swiftly can you lock a site? A burden elevates from my frame. In truth, I've located a venue in the arts quarter. The prior eatery shuttered 4 months back. Complete galley setup, prime pedestrian flow. David arches a brow. Remarkable foresight. 3 hours hence, I stand in the vacant eatery venue, bargaining conditions with the estate overseer. Daylight cascades through panes that will soon display Emily's glow to strollers. Each choice feels like reclaiming a segment of myself. Back at my flat, my device hums with a message from Michael. Catastrophe at Bayview Looks Conference. Leaders displeased. Ethan perspiring profusely. I decant a flute of Chardonnay, relishing both the bouquet and the update. The conference Ethan usurped from me has evidently unfolded as I foresaw. Michael rings 60 minutes later. You'd have chortled, he says, his tone subdued. Ethan attempted your citrus infusion, but it was far from yours. Overly tart, odd texture. He overdid the acid to offset subpar fruits, I retort, aware of my siblings' habits. The leaders spotted instantly. One queried your whereabouts. Michael snickers. They abbreviated the session, stating they required reevaluation of partnership facets. Ethan appeared nauseous. I recline in my seat, eyeing the overhead and the repercussions. Turmoil. Ethan's contacting every vendor, probing ingredient flaws. But Grace ignores his summons, and Henry informed him the elite marine he received stemmed from your bond. Bonds require years to cultivate, I whisper. That's not everything, Michael persists. 4 group functions annulled today, buzz circulates on caliber concerns. Your parents appear stunned. The update should satisfy more than it does. Instead, I sense a complex knot of justification and sorrow for the eatery's repute I toiled to establish. My device signals an inbound call. Mom. I divert to recording, then play. Emily, darling, kindly return our contact. The Bayview Looks supper is imminent, and we require your aid. The kin requires you. Please. Her timbre fractures on the closing entreaty. I press my brow to the chilled pane, observing vehicles beneath. When my mother contacted that dusk, weepily imploring me to rescue the kin by assisting with the Bayview Looks supper, I wavered. Would re-entering to aid maintain what I'd forged display fortitude, or merely facilitate further conduct that ousted me? The next morn, Michael appears at my flat with a binder. Figured you'd desire these, he states, pushing a pile of sheets across my counter. Daily earnings logs, booking figures, guest grievances. They're plummeting. I leaf through the records, noting the steep drop. They'll attribute outer elements. They're attempting, but figures don't deceive. Michael props against the surface. The galley crew is with you. Just utter it. Later, Grace acquaints me with niche growers from the Cascade Basin who can provision Emily's glow with rare greens inaccessible to bigger eateries. We stroll amid strips of vibrant greens, the early moisture yet adhering to foliage. These clans have tilled for eras, Grace elucidates. They're thrilled to collaborate with a cook who values their skill. Henry contacts while I'm en route home. Emily, I've a consignment of Pacific halibut arriving next week. Top tier, and I'm dining with Samuel Foster tomorrow evening. I nearly veer. The Samuel Foster, from Harbor Investments. Indeed, he's scouting to fund a novel eatery idea. I may have dropped your name. The elements align quicker than hoped. With Henry's marine links, Grace's veggie web, and Michael's internal data, I can hasten my schedule by months. That afternoon, I get a message that makes my palms shake. Bayview Looks leaders soliciting a conference to deliberate my autonomous gastronomic ideas. They've located me. Meanwhile, Willow Creek Bistro's online profiles brim with inquiries. Where's Cook Emily? Is she returning? One critique states, cuisine caliber has plunged sharply, lacking the prior cook's flair. My father's recordings grow more frantic. Emily, this Bayview pact is vital for our growth. Please rethink. We can negotiate your role. The fissure in their veneer broadens daily. Arrogance crumbles beneath outcomes load, unveiling the verity I've always sensed. They depend on me more than I on them. I linger in the vacant area that will evolve into Emily's glow, picturing the tomorrow forming. A tomorrow rooted in esteem, caliber, and my steadfast criteria. For the first time since exiting Willow Creek Bistro, I beam unrestricted. 9 days later, the view of my father's sedan, halting outside my fresh eatery venue, sends a surge of contentment through me. Finally, they're approaching me. I position in the threshold observing as the trio alights, Dad with his frame unnaturally rigid, Mom scanning anxiously at the leasing banner, now bearing a prominent pending label, and Ethan lagging in untypical quietude. Emily, Dad essays a cordial beam that misses his gaze. This is intriguing. Somewhat compact versus Willow Creek, no. I withhold reply, merely propping the entry. Building particles drift in the midday rays filtering through glass. Bare stone partitions and salvaged timber floors craft precisely the ambience I've conceived. We've attempted contacting you. Mom utters, her digits fidgeting with her silver chain. The eatery needs you. Ethan hawks, we've crafted a fresh offer. He extracts a bound case. Balance collaboration between us. You oversee the galley, I direct the operational facet. With us holding ultimate verdict power, Dad inserts swiftly, for stability. When I don't promptly retort, his inflection alters. The kin heritage is at risk, Emily. Don't you value what Grandpa established? What we've collectively forged? Mom advances, her tone gentling. We're proposing what you sought. Why so obstinate? I proceed to the improvised workstation in the nook where my portable rests ajar. You know what's curious? You never inquired what I truly desired. I rotate the display toward them, disclosing my enterprise scheme. And now it's overdue. Their perplexed looks kindle warmth in my core. I obtained my own capital 10 days back. The rental is sealed. I withdraw a binder and extract a sheet with the Bayview Looks emblem atop. And this landed yesterday. Dad grabs it, eyes expanding as he scans. This is an intent declaration for alliance. 600,000. Soul pack showcasing my hallmark plates. I can't suppress the pride in my timber. They were keen on partnering with the genuine cook behind the honored lineup, not a managerial proxy. You can't proceed. Ethan falters. The Bayview arrangement was ours. It was mine. I nurtured that bond for 4 years. I shift to the room's midpoint. I didn't seek collaboration. I sought esteem, and I discovered backers who provide both. From another binder, I retrieve a stack of prints and pass them to my father. These might intrigue you as well. He browses the outputs, hue fading from his visage. Digital critiques of Willow Creek Bistro post my exit. Caliber has cratered, not the eatery. Where's the cook who rendered this spot unique? Mom glances over his arm, her palm shielding her lips. I stride beyond them to the galley zone, motioning at the environs. The exhaust system installs next week. We're retaining the visible galley design, but enlarging the cook's bar to accommodate 14. I disregard their interruptions. The beverage lineup will spotlight modest local estates, and we're fitting a charcoal oven yonder. Dad's countenance flushes your erring. The Willow Creek Bistro label has familiarity. Folks recognize us, perhaps. I was never elevating your label. I was elevating mine. The truth liberates. Folks arrived for my cuisine, not your title. That's what you never grasped. The main entry bells, and 3 workers in jumpsuits enter, bearing a bulky parcel. Shipment for Emily Harper. Ideal timing. I state, endorsing the receipt. The workers unwrap it meticulously, unveiling a brass plaque with etched characters Emily's Glow. They prop it against the stone wall above the dining entry, to be. Gentle brass shines in the midday glow. You'll forfeit all, Ethan declares, but his timbre quavers. I already did. 11 years of effort, my kin's faith. I confront him wholly. But I'm forging superior. Ethan's impeccable poise finally fractures. We can't duplicate your plates. Nothing flavors identical. The marine vendor won't respond my summons. That's because preparing isn't a commercial equation. It's a bond with the cuisine and the served. I trace the salvaged counter. You can't measure zeal or individual link. When they exit, frames drooped and steps heavy, I linger in my venue's core. My eatery. My tomorrow. The contentment penetrates deeper than anticipated. 3 weeks hence, Michael relays a message on Willow Creek Bistro, pursuing a temporary fund to bridge functional deficits. Habitual patrons have wandered, and whispers circulate on a total lineup redesign and frantic reimaging bid. The kin query lingers open. My device displays 4 ignored calls from Mom today alone, but I'm unprepared to respond. Not yet. There's excess to accomplish, excess at stake. On Emily's Glow's preview evening, I navigate amid tables occupied by cuisine reviewers, steadfast past guests, and sector acquaintances. The galley buzzes with the splendid disorder I've generated, performing my concept exactly as envisioned. Near shutdown, I surface for a concluding welcome circuit when I notice her. My mother, perched solo at a side table, a partially consumed dish of my Dungeness crab with citrus infusion before her. Our gazes connect across the space, and for the first time in months, I discern something past disillusion and control. Acknowledgement. 7 months later, the brass pot hums against the heat as I concentrate the citrus glaze, no longer needing to defend my choice to quadruple the fresh produce or the dash of whiskey I incorporate intuitively. Behind me, 4 station cooks operate with honed accuracy, their blades gleaming as they ready for this evening's shift. Chef, we're set for the sampling lineup assessment. Michael summons, now my chief deputy, rather than merely a comrade in a galley that never genuinely prized either. I affirm, permitting an instant to appreciate Emily's Glow's shining breadth, my eatery, my concept, my guidelines. The autumn lineup adjustments I've schemed honor regional gathers, rather than settling for preserved alternatives Ethan would have demanded. The periodic cycle has become our signature, eliciting commendation from reviewers who once scarcely acknowledged Willow Creek Bistro. Approaching, I reply, cleaning my palms on my smock as I approach the setup post where Mia, a gastronomy learner I've mentored, awaits my judgment on her broth craft anxiously. The texture is flawless, I inform her, recalling how my mother once rejected my initial concentrate as overly particular. Now explain why you selected basil over oregano. Her rationale displays potential. This is how guidance should sense. Not rejection cloaked as direction, but authentic commitment to another's advancement. Later, my device vibrates with another booking plea. We're reserved through January, with cuisine analysts from San Francisco and Boston soliciting spots. Countrywide media focus has converted our Seattle nook into a hotspot, justifying every restless night spent honing formulas in my compact flat galley after departing my kin's eatery. The midday post delivers an envelope from the National Gastronomy Alliance. Within, an invite to next month's honors event where Emily's Glow is nominated for Eatery of the Year. The identical event where, merely 20 months prior, I clutched a prize while my parents murmured on my siblings' commercial prowess. When the declaration arrives at the ceremony, I don't let the award slip in astonishment like before. Instead, I receive it with firm grip, the beam warm on my face as I express gratitude to my squad by name. Michael, Grace, who yet provisions our veggies, Henry, whose marine enables our hallmark plates, and every cook who trusted sufficiently to trail me. Triumph isn't solely about disproving others. I convey to the gathering my timber-bearing assurance earned through ordeal. It's about affirming yourself. Back at the eatery, we assemble post-closure. Grace fetches sparkling wine while Henry displays the initial preview of my recipe tome proudly. Michael pops the cork with a gratifying burst, pouring flutes around our communal table, the one for staff repasts shared, not verdicts imposed, to forging something that mirrors our essence. I salute, not what others deem we should embody. Their flutes ascend in reply, illumination capturing the effervescence within. The subsequent morn, arrayed on my workstation, 6 varied growth proposals from upscale inns rest beside an invite to evaluate the Northwest Gastronomy Contest. My grandfather's faded image observes from its casing next to my honors, his initial cafe that initiated all before enterprise schemes and degrees infiltrated our kin lexicon. A rap at my workspace portal discloses Ethan, credentials in hand, present for the management head interview. I consented to following our mother's emotional plea at the holidays. As I ponder whether to integrate my sibling into my venture, I muse if certain kin bonds can be reconstructed on fresh bases, or if some spans, once torched, should remain traversed. Would you extend another opportunity to one who professionally betrayed you, if they exhibited true shift, or is commerce and kin optimally maintained eternally apart? Occasionally the grandest kindness someone can offer is to undervalue you. It compels you to genuinely cherish yourself. To expand this narrative further, let's delve into the early days of my journey at Willow Creek Bistro. Back when it was just a modest family spot on the edge of town, serving basic comfort food to locals who knew my grandfather by his first name. I remember the summer I turned 18, fresh out of high school, when Dad handed me a set of keys and said, "Emily, why don't you try your hand at updating the menu?" It was supposed to be a temporary gig while I figured out college, but the moment I stepped into that kitchen, something clicked. The sizzle of butter in a hot pan, the aroma of fresh herbs crushing under my knife. It was like coming home to a place I'd never known I missed. That first week, I experimented with a simple grilled cheese, adding caramelized onions and a hint of balsamic reduction. The regulars raved, and soon word spread. By the end of the month, we'd seen a 20% uptick in lunch traffic. Dad patted me on the back, but it was Mom who pulled me aside and said, "You have a gift, sweetheart. Maybe this is your path." Little did I know that path would wind through years of dedication, only to hit a dead end at the hands of my own family. As the bistro grew, so did my role. I enrolled in culinary classes at night, driving an hour each way after closing shifts. One memorable evening, after a grueling exam on sauce techniques, I came back to find the kitchen in chaos. A pipe had burst, flooding the floor. Instead of calling it a night, I rallied the small staff we had then, and we mopped up while I whipped up a late night staff meal of pasta with whatever was salvaged from the walk-in. That bond we formed over shared laughter and steaming bowls turned those employees into lifelong allies, much like Michael would become later. It's those moments that Ethan never understood. He was off at college, studying spreadsheets and market analyses, while I was knee-deep in the real work of building relationships. Flash forward a few years, and I'd transformed the menu entirely. Take the day I first sourced from Henry. I'd heard about this local fisherman who caught his hauls at dawn and delivered by noon. I drove out to the docks myself, the salt air whipping through my hair as I watched him unload crates of glistening fish. We talked for hours about sustainable practices, and he shared stories of his grandfather teaching him to read the tides. That conversation led to our exclusive deal for fresh catches, which became the backbone of our seafood specials. The first time I served his cod with a lemon herb crust, a table of food bloggers happened to be dining, and their glowing post went viral in local circles. Revenue jumped, and Dad started talking expansion for the first time. But even then, there were hints of the favoritism to come. At family dinners, Mom would gush over Ethan's campus achievements, Dean's List, internships at big firms, while my updates on new dishes were met with polite nods. "It's great you're keeping busy in the kitchen," Dad would say, "but Ethan's learning how to run a real business." Those words stung, but I buried the hurt in work, pouring my energy into perfecting recipes that would prove my value. One such creation was the berry glazed duck, inspired by a hike in the nearby forests where I foraged wild fruits. I spent weeks testing glazes, balancing sweetness with a touch of smokiness from the grill. When it debuted, we had lines out the door, and a local magazine featured it as a must-try. Yet, when Ethan visited that holiday, he picked at it and suggested cutting costs by using frozen berries. "It's efficient," he said. I argued that fresh made the difference, but Mom shushed me, saying, "Let's not argue, Ethan's just trying to help." Looking back, those small dismissals were cracks in the foundation, widening over time until the whole structure collapsed. Adding to the expansion. Let's explore a new scene from just before the takeover, when I was deep in negotiations with Bayview Lux. I'd arranged a private tasting for their team, transforming our banquet room into an intimate showcase. Candles flickered on the tables, and I personally served each course, explaining the story behind every ingredient. Victor Lang, their director, savored the citrus-infused crab and said, "Emily, this isn't just food, it's an experience." We spent the evening discussing terms, and by the end, he shook my hand on a preliminary agreement. Elated, I shared the news with my parents over coffee the next morning. "This could change everything," I said, outlining how the N150,000 would fund upgrades without sacrificing quality. Dad nodded thoughtfully, but Mom glanced at Ethan, who was visiting, and asked, "What do you think, son?" He leaned back, sipping his espresso, and replied, "It's promising, but we need to review the margins. Maybe simplify the menu to make it more replicable." I felt a chill. It was the first inkling that my triumph was being reframed through his lens. That conversation planted seeds of doubt, leading to the fateful meeting where everything unraveled. To flesh out the aftermath of my departure, consider the days immediately following my walkout. I holed up in my apartment, alternating between fury and grief, flipping through old photos of the bistro's early transformations. One showed me and Grandpa in the original diner, him teaching me to flip pancakes with a wink. He always said, "Food is love, Emily. Put your heart in it, and people will taste it." His words echoed as I began sketching plans for my new venture. But doubt crept in. Could I really start over? That's when Grace called unprompted, with encouragement. "I've seen what you do with my produce," she said. "It's magic. Don't let them dim your light." Her words reignited my fire, and I spent that afternoon cold, calling potential investors, practicing my pitch in the mirror until it flowed naturally. One rejection after another came, but each no taught me to refine my approach, emphasizing not just the food, but the sustainable ecosystem I'd built. Finally, connecting with David Harlan felt like fate. His questions delved deep into my philosophy, and when he agreed to fund me, it was validation I'd craved from my family, but never received. Building Emily's Glow involved countless new details and challenges. Take the renovation phase. I worked side by side with contractors, insisting on eco-friendly materials like reclaimed wood from local mills. One afternoon, as we installed the open kitchen layout, a worker asked why visibility mattered. "Because diners should see the passion," I explained. "It's not hidden, it's shared." That philosophy extended to hiring. I interviewed dozens, seeking not just skill but alignment with my values. Mia, the young student, stood out with her eager questions during her trial shift. She reminded me of myself at that age, full of ideas but needing guidance. Mentoring her became a joy, contrasting sharply with how my family had treated my input. We developed new dishes together, like a roasted vegetable medley with infused oils, drawing from Grace's latest harvests. Each tasting session built team spirit, turning the kitchen into a collaborative heaven rather than a hierarchy. Customer interactions added layers too. During the soft opening, a couple approached me, saying they'd followed from Willow Creek because your touch is irreplaceable. Their words healed old wounds, affirming that my brand was mine alone. As success mounted, I expanded community ties, hosting workshops on sustainable cooking where locals learned to forage and prepare simple meals. One session, with kids from a nearby school, turned chaotic with flower fights, but ended in shared laughter over homemade pies. These moments reinforced the message business thrives on connection, not just profit. Reflecting on family, a new dialogue emerged at a holiday gathering months later. Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen, eyes misty. "We didn't realize how much you carried," she admitted. Ethan's ideas seemed so modern, but we lost sight of the heart. I listened, heart softening slightly, but held firm. "Change takes action, not words," I said. When Ethan later applied for the job, I interviewed him rigorously, probing his regrets and vision. He confessed, "I thought degrees trumped experience, but I was wrong. Your way built loyalty I couldn't replicate." Hiring him on probation was a risk, but it opened doors to cautious rebuilding, teaching that forgiveness, when earned, can bridge divides. Yet, I kept boundaries, ensuring my voice remained central. Through it all, the theme endures: undervaluation sparks self-discovery. In quiet evenings, as I experiment with new infusions, I whisper thanks to the betrayal that pushed me to shine independently. The emotional journey, from shock to empowerment, reminds us that true worth isn't granted, it's claimed. And in claiming it, we inspire others to do the same, creating ripples of change in kitchens, families, and beyond. Expanding further on supplier relationships, let's recall a detailed interaction with Henry during the transition. Weeks after leaving, I met him at the docks at sunrise. The horizon painted in pinks and oranges. He handed me a crate of fresh scallops, saying, "These are for your new place. No charge. Just promise you'll make them sing." We sat on the pier, feet dangling, as he shared tales of stormy seas and bountiful catches. His support wasn't just business, it was personal, born from years of mutual respect. That crate became the base for a new appetizer at Emily's Glow: seared scallops with a herb emulsion that drew raves and solidified our ongoing partnership. Similarly, with Grace, we organized farm visits for my team, turning procurement into education. One rainy afternoon, trudging through muddied fields, We harvested beets and discussed soil health. These experiences enriched our menu and fostered a sense of purpose, contrasting Ethan's detached approach. Adding dialogues from investor meetings, during my pitch to David, he challenged, "What sets your model apart from chains?" I responded passionately, "Chains prioritize uniformity. I prioritize seasonality and stories. Each dish tells of the farmer's care, the fisher's dawn haul. It's authentic. And authenticity builds loyalty money can't buy." He nodded, impressed, and our conversation flowed into hours, covering everything from cost controls to community impact. Such exchanges built not just funding but mentorship, with David offering advice on scaling without losing soul. In staff dynamics, a new scene during a busy service, Mia overcooked a batch of proteins. Instead of scolding, I pulled her aside and demonstrated the fix, turning it into a lesson on timing and intuition. "You're learning," I said. "Mistakes are part of the art." Her gratitude strengthened our bond, echoing how I wished my family had nurtured me. Customer stories abound too. An elderly gentleman who dined weekly, sharing memories of his late wife's favorite meals. I adapted a dish to honor her, and his teary thanks reminded me why I cook to touch hearts. As national attention grew, interviews probed my backstory. In one podcast, I shared honestly, betrayal hurt, but it freed me to build authentically. Listeners resonated, sending messages of solidarity, turning my tale into inspiration. Family reconciliation progressed slowly, a shared meal at Emily's Glow, where I served Grandpa's old recipes updated my way, sparked genuine talks. Dad admitted, "We focused on growth, but forgot the roots you tended." Ethan's role evolved into collaborative, respecting my lead. Yet I remained vigilant, knowing trust rebuilds gradually. Ultimately, this path affirms that from undervaluation blooms resilience, crafting not just success but fulfillment. In every sizzling pan and satisfied smile, I find my true value, unshakable and self-defined. To make this even more detailed, let's add a flashback to childhood, where the seeds of inequality were sown. I was 10, helping Mom bake cookies for a school sale. Ethan, 8, wandered in and suggested selling lemonade instead for better profits. Mom laughed and said, "What a little businessman!" My cookies sold out, but the praise went to his idea. That pattern repeated. My practical contributions overlooked for his theoretical ones. It fueled my drive to excel in the kitchen, turning hurt into motivation. Another new scene post-opening, a rival chef visited incognito, later revealing himself to compliment, "Your fusion is bold yet balanced." Care to collaborate on an event that led to a pop-up dinner series, blending our styles and expanding my network. Dialogues with team during brainstorming, Michael suggested, "What if we add a vegan twist to the crab alternative?" We experimented late into the night, laughing over failures until perfection emerged. These additions kept the menu dynamic, attracting diverse crowds. Emotional depth came from personal reflections. Alone after shifts, I'd journal gratitudes for freedom, for growth, for proving my path. When Mom finally visited regularly, our talks healed wounds, acknowledging past oversights. Ethan's change showed in actions, like deferring to my decisions without ego. Yet, the message remains: self-worth isn't familial approval but internal conviction. Through trials, I emerged stronger, my story a testament to rising above underestimation with grace and grit. Expanding on the cookbook process, I collaborated with a photographer friend, staging shoots in the kitchen during off hours. One session, capturing the citrus glaze pour, we discussed life's pores, how setbacks refine us like reductions concentrate flavors. The book, titled From Hearth to Heart, wove recipes with anecdotes, becoming a bestseller and tool for teaching aspiring chefs. In workshops, I'd say, cooking is emotion on a plate, let your story season it. Participants shared their tales, creating a community beyond walls. A new example, hosting a charity dinner for local farmers hit by floods, We raised funds while showcasing their produce, strengthening bonds and publicity. Grace teared up, saying, "You've given us more than business. A voice." Such acts embodied the theme's success measured in impact, not just income. Family-wise, a turning point was Ethan's apology during a quiet coffee. "I underestimated your expertise because I envied your passion," he confessed. I forgave, but set terms for his role: support, not supplant. Our dynamic shifted to mutual respect, proving change possible. Yet, the core lesson endures. When others fail to see your light, ignite it yourself. My journey from Austed to owner inspires that truth daily. In closing reflections, as Emily's glow thrives, I ponder future expansions. Not chains, but sister spots preserving intimacy. Mentors like David advise grow mindfully, quality over quantity. With team input, we plan, ensuring every step honors the heart that built this. Through it all, emotional conversations with self and others reveal growth's beauty. The tone stays conversational, sharing as if with a friend. Remember, when life serves lemons, make that glaze. And own the recipe. This script is fully original and does not reproduce the source text word for word.